Hey everybody, and welcome to Life Strategies with Nat. I am your host, Natalia, aka Nat, and I'm here every week talking to you about how you can create lasting transformation so you can reach the next level of success. I am so excited because today I have a very special guest, the lovely Joanna, aka JoJo Ellis. And she is here. She's going to come. She's a mindset strategist and NLP trainer, which is, if for those of you that don't know, neuro-linguistic programming. And so she is going to come on. One sec, sorry. So she's going to come on soon, and we're going to talk about how to get out of your own way. Before we get started, how was everyone's Easter? Drop me a comment. If you're here, say hello. If you want to share how much chocolate you had, I know I had a ton, so I'm really excited about that. And it was an interesting question that I had today for everybody. I don't know if you saw it, but I was asking everybody about how many unread emails they have. And I was pretty blown away by how many people responded. I was pretty excited. But it also taught me that it's also all about perspective. I'll tell you why. So there were people that had 0, 150. There were people that had 10,000, 20,000, 85,000, up to 250,000 unread emails. And I can tell you, there would have been a point in time where... And sorry, I'm just like trying to get Joanna on. But there would have been a point in time where I would have been like, oh my God, heart palpitating. Get me some lavender right this second. But, you know, it's all about perspective. Because on the one hand, you can say, okay, wow, they must be overwhelmed or disengaged or something. Or is it rather that you know that you don't need to spend the time going into every single email? Like, how much time is that? Right? So much time. Okay, so I'm just going to bring on right now, JoJo. But yeah, so, I mean, think about that when you're going through your emails. Hey, JoJo.
Hey, I missed the beginning, so I'm not sure if you named and shamed me.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm not matching any names to numbers.
I'm fine to be named and shamed. I had a lot of emails in my inbox.
I had to, you know, for me, it was just, I decided that I was just going to mark them all as read because I knew that I had handled them. I don't need to see that big number staring at me in the face. Hi, Sakshi. But yeah, it's, I'm not gonna make you name your number.
Oh no, I'm fine. I think one box had 51,000 in it, so 51,000 people that care enough about me to message me, I'm sure.
51,000 and proud. Hey Joe,
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're here because it's just been so long. I mean, the last time I saw you was when I was speaking at the International Women's Day conference. Yeah. And you came all the way to see me and support me, and it was so amazing just to have you in the crowd. And
I wouldn't have missed it for the world, and you were amazing. You got the crowd doing the Mexican wave, didn't you? Which was just awesome. So much energy, and I loved seeing you.
That was hilarious. But I wanted to, I thought we would start off, and I would just ask you kind of like, tell us about your story. How did you get here? What is NLP all about? Because I know it was pretty new to me. I think last year, I just really started to dig into it when I started working with you a little bit.
Well, NLP is something that's completely changed my life. So I grew up, going a long way back now, I grew up a very lacking in self-confidence young girl. I had a lovely dad. I still have a lovely, loving dad. But he liked good, quiet girls that sat in the corner. And for various reasons, I ended up being that good, quiet girl. Really struggled with confidence, really hated going to any social events, would have hated doing something like this. So what happened to me was I learned to be really good at listening. I learned to smile a lot. I learned how to get on with people, because all the time I was doing that, I wasn't having to talk to them and I wasn't having to share my story. Now, the interesting thing that happened was when I started in the world of work, I ended up in sales jobs, even though I'd thought that was the last thing that I was going to be doing, because I didn't think I had the gift of the gab. I didn't feel confident, but because I ended up being good at sales, because I was good at listening, I was good at caring about people. But I still had this belief that I was in the wrong place. I was an imposter, which is what we're going to be talking about. So I threw myself, and this was over 20 years ago, threw myself into personal development. One of the books that kept, or the areas that kept coming up, was something called neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And NLP is a study of success. So in the world of NLP, it can either be used in therapy or in business. And you would go into, for example, with sales, you would go into a company and say, look, let's look at the really good salespeople and what makes them really good at sales. Not just what they're saying, but how are they thinking? What are they doing with their body? What are they doing with their patterns of thought, how they talk to themselves, and that sort of thing. And then from that point onward, I was able to learn about confidence. I was really able to boost my own confidence as well, and realised that actually the corporate world wasn't for me. And about 10 years ago, I started my own business. And the thing I love about NLP really is that people think that they are going to be stuck with various different things that they go through, lacking of confidence. They think it's going to take years of therapy to overcome it. But the thing about NLP is we work out what works and we teach it to people. And you can have really deep transformations really, really quickly, which I absolutely, absolutely love.
I think, I mean, the more that I read it, it makes sense. But it's how you talk to yourself. It's it as well too, right? Like and those are some of the, when you're talking about the behaviors that you start to adapt, because I mean, I used to be bullied in school, so you learn to kind of like stay out of people's way and do the smile and nod thing and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here quietly, so I get where you're coming from. And I think we can be our own worst enemy, and I think there's a difference between, or maybe I'll ask you, do you think there's a difference between the inner critic and the imposter? Like, how did those kind of play together?
So I think, so the imposter syndrome, if I just tap into what that is. So that is basically where it was a terminology that came about in the 1970s, where a couple of psychologists studied 150 women, and on the surface these women were very, very successful. They had successful careers, they had great qualifications, they had great education, but they didn't believe that they were good enough. It boils down to feeling good enough. They felt like they were frauds, that they were going to be found out at any stage, had an immense fear of being criticised, but were also very self-critical. So I think the inner critic plays a big part in any situation where we're not feeling our most resourceful, any situation where we're out of flow, we're in a funk. We need to look at the thoughts inside our head, knowing that we all have them. So it doesn't make us crazy or anything that we have these thoughts, but we have them. And sometimes as well, the power with NLP is it's not always just what we're saying to ourselves, it's how we're saying it. So for example, you could say, you're really rubbish. Nat, you're really rubbish at what you do. I think you're so rubbish. And you wouldn't feel bullied by it. If I went, you're really rubbish, that was an awful talk that you did at the conference. I thought I was so embarrassed. You were rubbish. It's the same words, but it's different tonality, and it has that power. So one of the best tips I always say to people is, if you have this feeling of I'm not good enough, listen to what you're saying to yourself. Listen to how you're saying it, change how you're saying it, maybe make it softer, make it quieter, see the power of that. Literally, people who have had negative beliefs about themselves can be changed in an instant by changing how they hear it. It's so powerful, and it's so much fun, which is why I love doing it. We often laugh with people. You can end up having like a Mickey Mouse voice in your head, which when it says I'm not good enough, then you end up laughing about it. So I can't think how Mickey Mouse talks. How's your Mickey Mouse?
Oh my gosh. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Yeah.
Something like that. So it makes you laugh.
Yeah, you know
And
what?
it's when we're feeling laughing and when we're feeling resourceful, it's very difficult to be scared or out of flow.
That's hilarious. Because it's so funny. It is the tonality and it is the way that you are speaking to yourself that makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say to the people that feel like they don't have all the skill sets to be able to go after a certain something? I find that really comes up a lot in the work that I do, and maybe for a lot of people that are listening. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips around that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about imposter syndrome is sometimes there are elements of truth there. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if we feel that we're not good at something, if we can take a step back and say, okay, let me be rational about this. Is it that I'm not good enough because I haven't practiced enough? For example, a lot of people, it'd be, I don't feel good enough about doing lives. And there I would say, just start somewhere. Don't worry about making mistakes. We all make mistakes. I get my words muddled up all of the time. But when you look down the path, the next time it'd be a bit easier, the next time it would be a bit easier. So is it a case that you need practice, or is it a case that you do need something that would really, really help? So it might be that you want to do a course that will give you more confidence. The key thing about imposter syndrome, one of the things that I struggled with it for many, many years, and as I grow, it rears its ugly head every now and then. And I have got so many qualifications because I never felt for a long time I was like, okay, I'm not quite ready, I'll just do this other qualification, or I just
Yeah.
study this other therapy practice or this other way of coaching, and I'm so grateful for it. But
Mm-hmm.
action is where you're really going to get your confidence. It's taking action, learning from your mistakes, not being scared of them. In
Mm-hmm.
NLP as well, we say, one of my favorite phrases is, there's no failure, there's only feedback. So
I love
everything you do,
that.
you're always going to be learning from it. And when you take on and really live that assumption, as we call it, it can just reduce any fear. It's like everything. If I'm like, okay, what did I learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
I swore in the middle of a lie. What did I learn about that? Is that so bad, or is it that my
Yeah.
tribe will understand it, or is it that I should have calmed myself down beforehand? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I was in a mood, I should have calmed myself beforehand. So next time I know that, and every single time I'll be building these layers of getting better and better.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's another thing that people struggle with is just allowing themselves to make that mistake and just being like, okay, I can do this. It's not going to, what's the worst that could happen, you know?
Absolutely. And it's not surprising that people feel like that at all. We have this deep-seated fear of being judged, which is hardwired within us. We don't want to be chucked out of a tribe, because
Yeah.
if we're chucked out of the tribe, we're more likely to be eaten. So it makes sense that we want people to like us. We want to be part of the group.
Yeah.
And, I look back at my school years. I don't know how different, so I'm sure schools are different now, but I remember when I was at school in English class, we had to stand up and read from a book, and it used to terrify me. I remember I was wearing a brace at the time, and it used to like really change how I was speaking. So I'd sit and watch the teacher come round person by person, getting more and more nervous. Sometimes I'd take the brace out and put it in my hand and literally be shaking. And the culture was that the teacher would literally say, you've done this wrong, you've done that wrong. The same in many companies as well. It's like it's a very big culture of you've got to be perfect. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not surprising that we have this deep-seated fear of getting things wrong. But I think what I love about nowadays, more and more, Brené Brown is her new, just from this amazing, she does amazing work anyway. If anyone's got Netflix, I definitely recommend watching her video that's just appeared this weekend about the power of vulnerability. And actually, I really believe that people connect more when people make mistakes. They feel safer with
Yeah.
people that aren't this epitome of perfection. They can trust them more because they can identify with them more. So we can
Yeah.
embrace that imperfection. Almost some of the things that I ask my clients to do is make a deliberate mistake. So do a presentation and put a deliberate spelling mistake in there, and just sit with it. Because it's the fear of something that is often worse than what actually happens when it happens in reality, if that makes sense.
No, it makes absolute sense. And because we are so afraid of, well, I think even as women, we're afraid of being judged, and we're afraid of making mistakes and falling flat and appearing silly and all these other sorts of things because we're just we're just emotional. And
Yeah.
we just, and I think, I mean, would you say that there are certain personality types or certain behaviors that can be signals that you're maybe dealing with imposter syndrome?
So yeah, I mean, when I'm helping people through imposter syndrome, one of the things that we do at the beginning is say, what is this costing us? You know, what are the costs of it? And the things that come to the fore are, you know, it can have a big play on your health, on your success, on your relationships. So, for example, you know, one of the things with imposter syndrome that I used to struggle with was over preparing. So, because I never felt good enough, I was like, oh, I'm being asked to be a guest expert, and I don't feel like that inside myself. So, I'd spend hours and hours preparing, put myself under stress, under anxiety. You know, my husband sometimes has been like, come on, you know this stuff. Why are you preparing? Why are you getting all anxious beforehand? So that is definitely one of the signs. If you notice that you're over preparing and it's causing you more stress. And I'm a massive believer in the mind body connection. So, you know, stress leads to illness often. So that's something to watch out for. Snappiness, you know, like snappiness with your loved ones and so on, is just a sign that you're out of flow. But imposter syndrome can be a benefit as well, because in some respects, if you manage it, that feeling of, oh, okay, I need to prepare for this. It can keep you grounded. It can keep you striving for success. It can keep you preparing. So a lot of my clients will talk to me about having a devil and an angel on their shoulders. So many people resonate with that. You know, the angel's there, you can do it, and the devil's like, no, you can't. But what I find is that if we say, for example, I'm going to use doing a live or doing a presentation as an example, if the devil's like, you can't do it, you can't do it, sometimes the devil's got a real message. Actually, have you prepared enough? Have you done the research? Have you practiced enough? And when you've done those things, the devil often quietens down. So then we can learn to manage it. So listening to, is there any truth in what your inner critic or your devil is saying, and do any actions that will quieten it down.
Oh, I love that, because I think we can all identify with at least one of those things, at least one point in our lives. I mean, I identified with all of them. And I was just reading. There's so many people that are listening in. I was just, you know, hey Laura, hey Sakshi and Tracy. I was just seeing if anyone had any questions, because I know you can't see them.
No, I can't.
But
No. Yeah.
so far so good. Yeah, and it's about. So true. Each time we face our fear, we gain strength, courage, and confidence in doing. That's what Sakshi was saying. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And someone else was saying, yeah, beep, perfection. I won't say the word before it, but yeah. And it's true. But I want to thank you so much for coming on, JoJo, because it's such an important topic because we're so hard on ourselves all the time. And when you're a high achiever, and when you're a female entrepreneur, or just an entrepreneur in general, you can be so much harder on yourself because you have so many more challenges that you face. And would you say that, you know, once you start to, I guess, practice and be more in sync, I guess, if you will, with your imposter, with your inner critic, you know, would you say like the easier it is to get yourself out of those moments of like the funk, or, you know, like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there. I mean, I think if you're going through imposter syndrome, reframe it and see, actually, this is a sign that I'm growing. So the more I continue to grow, the more I'm going to accept that that's going to be part of my life. But it can be adaptive or maladaptive. So you could, you know, for example, I had a joke with you beforehand that every time I talk about imposter syndrome, my imposter syndrome flies up in my face. And I know I'm a hypnotherapist. I know the power of language. Just saying the word imposter syndrome is going to make me like go, oh, imposter syndrome, I'm feeling it. But I very well practiced now in any unresourceful behavior that I go through. I'm always curious about it. And you can never be curious and be fearful at the same time, is what I'm finding. It's like, oh, I'm feeling like this. Why am I feeling like this? Okay, is it because I haven't prepared enough? Is it because this is an amazing growth opportunity and this is a sign that I'm actually really living my life, really pushing through my boundaries, really exploring my business at such a high level? So that's good. And actually, if I've got butterflies in my tummy, I always say to people, just get them to fly in formation. Butterflies are good.
Aww.
It can be a sign of anxiety and it could be a sign of excitement as well. And one thing I always want to say to people is if you're feeling I'm not good enough, I feel like a fraud, shift it, because that's all very focused on ourselves. And I think nowadays more than ever, when we focus on contribution, when we focus on who we serve, then we can flip ourselves out of thinking of ourselves and thinking how we can help. So one thing that always helps me is thinking, if I can help one person with what I'm saying, I'm not going to position myself as an expert. I'm going to position myself as a contributor. I'm going to contribute to the conversation. And if one thing that I say just resonates with someone and helps them, then I feel like it was worth me saying it, and I'm going to just risk putting myself out there. And it's tough, it really is tough. Brené Brown talks about this much better than I do, but there's haters out there and there's crazy people that just say nasty things. Why? Because they're hidden behind a keyboard. And why do people do that? But it's just sending them love and light, and just surrounding yourself with people that make you feel good. But more importantly, knowing that you're doing good yourself, and, having it like a book full of great testimonials that you've received, or comments that people have said about you, or having feedback from someone that you really trust that will, tell you if you're not that good or if you messed up, but they do it in a loving way so that it doesn't stop you from moving forward in the future.
Oh, I could talk to you all day. Seriously. Can you just come back every week?
Oh, I'd love to.
Oh, no, but honestly, I think a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is certainly going to it's certainly resonated with me. And I always love to check back in and relate to that person or that inner critic, if you will. And I love how you said it, how it's just, having that dialogue, being curious and not fearful. I think I totally got that from you. I always say that now, I feel. Because it may, and same with the excitedness, are you afraid or are you just excited? I love that shift and that frame. That was a real big shift for me, just changing that language.
Yeah.
So I really hope that's helped everybody. But if anyone wanted to sort of get to know you a bit more or follow you a bit more, where can we find you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So I run a free Facebook group called Women of Influence. And my aim with that is to help amazing women, and there's some men in there as well, get past the things that hold us back. I see imposter syndrome, what the pain of it stops people in their tracks. It stops people getting started. It keeps them small. It means that some people quit and they don't take up opportunities. So I'm really passionate at helping people move past mindset blocks and then learning the skills to really stand out as women of influence in a meaningful way. So not from look at me, I'm the most important person in my industry, but very much actually I've got a message to share, and I can and women can do that so well. We're so good at contribution, at collaboration. Big fan of collaboration. I love guest interviews like this because we're all on the same path. There's an abundance of people that we can help. So Women of Influence is my free group. So I'd love to welcome people there. I do a chat every Friday, which you're going to be joining me in June, with my Woman of Influence of the week. And we just share sort of tips on entrepreneurship and also living your best life. I'm a big fan of making sure that we live our best life possible. We don't know how long we've got. I made that move to Spain like you have. I love my life. I'm really grateful for it. So I want everyone else to just get past the stuff that's holding them back and live their best life.
I love it. I love it because it just gives me goosebumps because I'm in this, like you said, I'm in the same boat, and it's amazing when you see people go for it,
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone should just keep going. Just know that the tough days are not, they're not going to last. well, you know, if you're going through a struggle, just go off and do something else instead. My main teaching, you'll know this, is, you know, do whatever you can to get yourself in flow, in a good state. Go out for a walk, go out and move away from your struggles, get some fresh air, get into nature, and then come back to things and change the way you look at things you look at change. There's always hope, and the world needs us all of us to share our own unique messages.
So true. Oh, JoJo, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely seeing you in June, but we'll catch you in your group as well.
Thank you so much. I've written an article about imposter syndrome, so I'm more than happy to put a link up in the comments.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would
Brilliant.
be amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you. You know, I love your energy. Absolutely adore you. So thank you so much.
You too. Okay, everybody.